Next week, part 3. Please now speak to me if you can. The tree will? I can't hear you. The tree will? Please, I can't hear you one more time. The tree will? Notice some trees will take 2 years to come down. Some trees will take 2 months to come down. Some trees will take 2 weeks to come down. But surely as the day follows the night, whether it's mahogany or blue gum, that tree will come down. And the challenge in this country and all over Black Africa, people keep on hopping from one tree to another. They try this tree, they get tired, they leave it. They rush to this tree, they say, this is hardwood, let me leave it. Let me try some softwood somewhere. They try a butchery, they try a salon, they try selling insurance. In one single year, they have tried 10 trees, and no tree is coming down. Then they conclude business does not work. And the problem is they never identified their tree. See, God never spoke to Abraham until he left his corrupt system and entered into the purposes of God. Until you discover your purpose, you will never have true fulfillment in life. It is possible to climb up the corporate ranks. It is possible to end up as a government leader, but I can tell you I've had the privilege of speaking to senior people in different places. I can look at your eye and tell you don't need to do the experiment. It has been done by others. You will never have true fulfillment because your gift wants to be unleashed. There is something within you that is dying to be released. And you'll never have true peace until you're within God's purposes for you. You are created for a very specific purpose. And until that purpose comes out, you live a life of struggle. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of freedom, the level of freedom you experience when you find out your tree. So mark that in April next year, from the 10th to the 16th, we are actually taking this conversation to the Great River Nile. We are going to have the Nile Cruise. And the purpose for doing this is to have a one-on-one conversation with the cruisers seated on a carpet like this and take them through a very interesting, through using some interesting tools until when they are coming back, they are sure what their tree is. I recognize, however, some people can't pay the price of discovering who they are. They would rather stumble and mop through life broke and peaceless. You either pay the price of finding out what is your purpose, or fight like a boxer who is fighting the air, aimless. I read of a story of an apostle who said, I don't box like I'm boxing the air. He also said, I don't run like someone without a race. I have some focus. You've got to see your destiny. That's the beginning of the conversation of leadership. The first assignment of a leader is to identify his or her purpose. You shouldn't live here without asking yourself that question. Why do I live? What is my mission? What is the purpose of my existence? That is the beginning of the conversation of a leader. And that takes me to the second D. The second D under purpose leadership, I'm going to call it today direction. Direction. Once you find out your tree, you've got to stay that course. I have some 5 people who have fundamentally influenced my life than any other person. Regrettably, 3 of them are dead. They never knew me. And in the order of their influence in my life, the first one was Zig Ziglar. The second one is John Maxwell. The third one is Rick Warren. The fourth one is the late Dr. Miles Monroe. And the fifth one is the late Jim Rohn. One of these people, John Maxwell, I was interacting this material years ago. And I came across one of his philosophies that utterly changed my life. It was my eureka moment. He said, I found my 5. I'm doing exactly what he does. And the people I'm quoting is because I found our destinies crisscrossing. That's why I picked them up to teach me even from a distance. And these are his 5. Every day he reads, every day he writes. Every day he files thoughts. Every day he asks himself critical questions, and he does reflective thinking. And from that moment, I resolved, every day I will read. Every day I will write. Every day I will file thoughts. Every day I'll do reflective thinking. And every single day, I'll ask myself critical questions. Some of you wonder why we are having such topics in this place. It's because I sit myself and ask myself the questions about what is ailing God's people in Kenya. Before I sit down to research about the topics I teach here, I ask myself those questions on a day-to-day basis. What are people going through? Before I come here to speak today alone, I'll spend 4 hours alone doing reflection. That's about my career. What are your 5? Have you identified your 5? Let me tell you one of the principles I teach in Sense 101 Life Club. I call it focus. I pulled it out from a man by the name Vilfredo Pareto. While he was studying the economic discrepancies of his nation, Italy, he realized that 80% of the world was controlled by 20% of the populace. He extended that theory to different fields of endeavor, including motivation, to suggest 80% of your results come from 20% of your inputs. The secret, therefore, is to identify the 20% that deliver the 80%. Wisdom, therefore, or rather focus, therefore, is not just knowing what to do, but knowing what not to do. Direction is not just knowing which road to pursue, but which road to avoid. Therefore, I define focus in this club as the ability to say no. I regret to tell you, even after saying this for so many months, I still find some of my very faithful members saying yes to everything every month. I talked to them during the cruise, and I realized most of them are preoccupied with meeting bills for a month. They have not realized if they try to cut this one tree for only 3 months, it will give way. I repeat, focus is the ability to say no. I repeat, wisdom is not just knowing what to do, but knowing what not to do. Selection is the name of the game. You've got to identify who not to see. They are valuable people in the sight of God. They are valuable people to their families. They might not be valuable to your purpose. Don't take coffee with anyone any given time. My desire would be to create time for all our members and sit with them one-on-one and take them through the PAM matrix. I'm a bit embarrassed to admit, this last month of August, I was not able to do that even with one single person. Even with one single person. I look at my diary, my schedules, and what I want to achieve in the course of the month. And regrettably, I have to say no to over 80% of the things that come along my way. What do you say no to? Who do you say no to? Are you consistently wondering why you're not having breakthroughs and you're still available for everyone? Did you know that the most valuable resource you have is your time? You see, there's a theory that is not proven that suggests if you do something for 100 times, it's helpful. If you do it for 1,000 times, it's game-changing. If you do it for 10,000 times, it's life-changing. Bruce Lee once said, I don't fear the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Tiger Woods knows that Bill Gates has made money through selling Microsoft products, but he's never tempted to do that. Every day he spends 7 to 8 intense hours on the golf course. He has identified what not to do. CR7, Cristiano Ronaldo. He spends 3 to 4 hours on the soccer field and then runs a number of times, 25 to 30 minutes. He has realized his tree is in the soccer. The late Michael Jackson spent 2 whole years producing one single album, Michael Jackson Thriller. It is the best-selling album of all times, sold in excess of 60 million copies, and a record-breaking 8 Grammy Awards. His production manager, Quincy Jones, said they quarreled so many times, almost going physical, while working on that project. It was so intense, even emotionally. The young man who visited our nation, that 2 years of age, Mark Zuckerberg, spent 50 to 60 hours every day on computer. I can look at your face, sit with you, work with you for a single day, and tell you where you are headed tomorrow. I can tell you with a certain degree of precision without a guess. And the story is simple. Have you identified your tree? Are you cutting that tree? Because you can succeed in anything you choose, but you can't succeed in everything. I know for a fact. See, when I make those statements, sometimes during Q&A time, people come and tell me, but we know people like Warren Buffett has over 60 companies. That's true. But you need to find out something. Each one of those guys identified their tree when it came down. They reached a level that they did not need to work anymore. They diversified their investments. Their money was working for them. Why are you copying people before you have a single tree coming down? I don't know whether I'm communicating. I request you, join this conversation if you can to the Nile. We are closing that tonight. Yes, there's an investment to make of 170,000 Kenya shillings, but it's more dangerous to head your next 10 years like a headless chicken with no direction. The third day I want to discuss under this dimension, I call it decisions. Decisions. A soldier was captured by enemy forces. The captain called him and told him, tomorrow morning, I'm going to give you 2 choices. You're going to exit through this door, or you're going to face the firing squad. The choice is in your hands. Go and sleep. Before sleeping, the soldier asked the captain, Captain, please, what is beyond this door? The captain said, I'm not going to answer that question. That's up to you. Choose what you want. The following morning, the captain asked the soldier, have you made up your mind? And the soldier, yes, I have. So what do you want? And the captain said, I want to face the firing squad. After the dust had settled, the sounds of the bullets had gone silent. The secretary of the captain asked the captain, Captain, what is beyond this door? And the captain replied, freedom. Freedom. Regrettably, a lot of people prefer the hell they know than the heaven they do not know. When we are confronted by tough choices, most of us choose the easy route we know than the tough choice that has possibilities. Even when you are agitating for freedom from the colonialists, a lot of our African fathers and grandparents prefer to serve the colonialists rather than fight for freedom. They prefer to go back to Egypt rather than fight their enemies and pursue their land of promise. I must caution you, if you are interested to build on your leadership skills, if you're interested to take your leadership prowess to another level, you must resist from making choices based on convenience and make choices based on morals. You must learn to make tough choices. You don't make choices by feelings. You make choices by purpose. You make your purpose prevail over your urges and cravings and passions because you're a man or a woman of destiny. You see, while we are free to make choices, we are not free to choose the consequences of those choices. The reality in life, you choose your sorrows and joys long before you experience them. Life is a sum total of the choices you make every day. When you are indecisive for too long, that indecision on its own becomes a decision. Let me put it this way. A prolonged indecision is already a decision on its own. It's a decision to fail. In fact, you would rather be making mistakes moving forward rather than agitating and doing a lot of maths on whether to launch that business, that idea, that vision. Because God never shows us the end. He lights up the way as we engage the gear of faith. And this takes me to the third dimension of servanthood leadership. I'm going to call it the people dimension. Let me see whether we are together. What was dimension number 1? Please talk to me. Dimension number 1? Personal leadership. Dimension number 2? Purpose leadership. Dimension number 3? People leadership. People leadership. You know, there is a Chinese proverb that says, anyone who purports to be a leader and has no followers is just taking a walk in the park. If you do the first 2 dimensions, you lead yourself, you lead your gift, that's the purpose leadership, naturally, people will follow you. And I want to discuss 3 S's at the people leadership. S number 1, I'm going to call it shuttle. Shuttle. Or rather ferry. Take people somewhere. Deliver them to the promise. Don't abort the vision. If the aid is not a desired aid, like what Adolf Hitler of Germany did, selling lies and shortcuts, from my perspective, you are not a leader, you are a manipulator. True leaders deliver people safely to the land of promise. And the speed of the pack is the speed of the leader. You'll be required to wear 2 types of hats when you are shuttling or rather ferrying people to where they're supposed to be. The first hat you're going to wear is that of a coach. And the work of a coach is to understand the player, to pave the way and let him shine. The joy of the coach is when the coachee shines. The success of the coach is measured by the success of the successor. How successful you are as a coach depends on how much the coachee succeeds. So you pave the way and allow them to shine. But then the second hat you're going to wear is that of a mentor. Mentorship is the highest level of servanthood leadership because in mentorship, you don't tell people what to do, you lead them in what to do. Leaders tell. Good leaders explain. Superior leaders demonstrate. Great leaders inspire. Great leaders, or rather what I'm calling tonight, servant leaders, don't tell people what to go. They go there and then they invite them. Hey, come. This is the place I'm talking about. They lead the way. They don't point fingers like some travel agents to some places they have never been. They take the journey with them. They walk alongside them. They can proudly say, follow me. This is the way. That means if you're here, you're hearing my voice tonight, and your insurance manager, what I'm telling you is this. Get into the field with your team. Harder objections and close the sale, or at least open relationships. Let them see you dealing with objections. That's leadership. If you're listening to me and you're in service industry, I'm suggesting today, groom up, style up, learn how to smile, and then let the people behind you see how you are treating your customers. If you're hearing my voice tonight and you're an employer, this is what I'm saying. Treat your employees the way you want them to treat your finest customers. You don't need to tell them how to speak. How you talk to them, they are going to give it back to your finest customers. Don't tell them to come to work early. You go to work early and then tell them it's important to go to work early. Don't tell them the need for delivering the reporting time. Deliver your reporting time. You have no more authority as a leader to tell people to do what you cannot do. Don't tell them to be using a nice language. Set the pattern. Most of you here tonight are members of Sense 101 Life Club. And every one of them listening to me can attest what I'm going to tell you right now. In our WhatsApp groups, there's a certain level of language we use, and there's a language we cannot use because I have set the pattern on the language we can use. And when I'm writing my articles, I never even use shorthand. And I've never told anyone how to write. So I've noticed over the time, they also write in proper English because they're observing the pattern set. You set the pattern, and people will follow you. They will follow after you. Are you with me? This takes me to the second S. I'm going to call it synergy. Synergy. The aspect of teamwork and collaborations. I don't know whether you have noticed this in the organization where you run, but there are always three types of people in that organization, be it a church, be it a company, be it an NGO, be it a life club like the one we are having tonight. You'll always notice three categories of people. The first category, I call them constituents. Constituents. Constituents are the majority. By the way, they form 85% of the audience. Even right now in Sense 101 Life Club, 85% are called constituents. They don't love Dr. Kenyajui Nganga. They love what he's doing. I'm too smart to be cheated. They are not with me. They are with the cause. If someone else promises to deliver the promise, they will jump ships and leave me here stranded. So I cannot put my faith in them. I don't know whether you are one of the constituents. Ask your neighbor, are you a constituent? Now, when you meet these people, I suggest to you, love them as they come, release them as they go. Roho safi. Clean heart. They are always the majority. They are not with you, they are with the cause, they are with the mission, they are with the vision, not with the leader. So the leader must continue to deliver the promise that he sold. In Sense 101 Life Club, we call it the main thing. And anyone who tries to digress from the main thing, I whip them back to the main thing because 85% of the people following me are following the main thing. They are not following me. And if another somebody, especially from Nigeria, promises to deliver faster, they will leave me. Then there's the second category. We call them comrades. Comrade power! Do you remember it? You have a common enemy to defeat. These guys don't love you. They are against what you are against. They are against your enemy. And the moment you slaughter the enemy, they leave you and go their way. They form 15% of the people in the organization. I don't know whether you remember in the year 2002, people from different political factions and interests came together because they had an enemy, or rather a perceived enemy known as KANU. Do you remember that? A few months after 203, the true colors came out. These guys were not friends after all. Do you remember that? They had a common enemy, and they defeated the common enemy. Now, they deal with each other because they were never friends. They were comrades. Ask your neighbor, are you my comrade? I regret to tell you they are 15%. Then 5%, if you're very, very lucky, maximum 5%, they are called confidants. Confidants. These are your diehards. They can take the bullet on your behalf. They love you for who you are. With or without that vision, they will stand with you. They love you as a human being. Let me tell you, if you have 3 confidants, you are doing exceptionally well, you need a gift. You're exceptional. I honor you. If you have more than 3, I honor you. These are the guys who will celebrate your joys and moon when you're mooning. It's easier for people to moon with you than to celebrate with your victories. Only your confidence can celebrate when you get a PhD. Only your confidence can celebrate you when you get married. Only your confidence can celebrate you when you get a house in upmarket. Only your confidence can celebrate you when you buy the latest car. The rest of the people, deep down their heart, they are wishing that car gets an accident. Now let me tell you this. People will follow you when they sense your destiny is inextricably bound to their destiny. People will follow you when they sense their purpose is tied to your mission. Learn to work with everyone, including your enemies. Almighty God, throughout biblical history, He worked with Jews and Gentiles, sinners and saints, the righteous and the prostitutes, children and adults, kings and slaves, including even donkeys. God used everyone and everything to accomplish His purpose. Even people who did not know Him or recognize Him, like King Cyrus, described in Isaiah 45. Learn to work with everyone because one is too small for greatness. You will never be fruitful alone. You will never reach greatness by your own. You must learn how to build alliances. All of us are like islands in the sea, separate on the surface, but joined in the deep. Connections give life meaning. And I'll elaborate on this coming month. You'll never reach greatness by your own. You've got to identify the giants upon whose shoulders you're going to climb. Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen far, it is because of riding on the shoulders of giants." Let me tell you for a fact, we wouldn't be having the current president of Kenya and the current deputy president of Kenya if they did not ride on the shoulders of former President Moi. Is that a fact? Identify your giants. Learn to be mentored. Stop struggling all alone. You're going to take too long to reach your destiny for a journey you could have climbed on the shoulders of others, whether in business, whether in politics. Some of you who lifted up your hand that you want to do politics and you want to surprise us by doing it your own way, you are wasting time and resources. You've got to learn to climb on the shoulders of giants. God raised Moses for Joshua. God raised Elisha for Elijah. You've got to identify your giants. Be humble enough to be mentored. Today, the two people who are leading this country, it is because at some point they were humble enough to be mentored. Are you with me? And don't be a gifted food fighter as though there's a reward for it. In an organization, people make mistakes, but there's not a single organization that was built by giants. Every single successful organization was built up by average people who were given an opportunity. Sometimes the opportunity is expensive in terms of capital, in terms of emotions, but you've got to give them a chance. You've got to believe in them. The second S. The third S. Are you in the third S? The third S. Are you there? And the last one. Service. Service. The real call of a leader is to serve. The late Dr. Miles Munro used to say, "A tree does not eat its own fruits." I believe a leader must have a strange love for humanity to pursue the peace of others, not his own peace. It is Eleanor Roosevelt who said, "When we cease to make a contribution, we cease to exist." I challenge each one of us to endeavor to make a contribution, no matter how small the contribution may seem. Anyone who thinks that a contribution is small has never tried to sleep in the same room with a mosquito. Any small contribution you make, you are pushing the cause of humanity forward. The idea here is not to live forever, but to do something that outlives you. It's Benjamin Franklin who said, if you want to be remembered, either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. Mahatma Gandhi one of the greatest leaders of all times. He said that I could be the change that you want to see in the world. Perhaps one of the most quoted person in terms of challenging the world to make a contribution. He put it in a poetic manner, far better than I would ever put it. Martin Niemöller, and he entitled the poem, Evil Prevails When Good People Do Nothing About It. He said that I quote, they first came for the socialist, and I didn't speak because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. And then finally they came for me, and there was no one left to speak on my behalf. If Martin Niemöller was speaking to us tonight, he's suggesting there is either peace for all or peace for none. You see, we keep on wondering what contribution we can make. And I know greatness is preceded by slaying a giant. Giants are all around us in Kenya. Each one of you know very well the leading monster in Kenya is corruption. It is the number one giant. And I receive texts every day from people. One of them I received yesterday of a woman whom I love and respect and honor. She's in our midst. I'm not going to mention her name. She wants to leave the country because the country is too corrupt to employ her. She's extremely educated, but they can't hire her. And of course I replied to her. And I said, that's why we are doing a lesson on leadership. Because who do you think is going to change corruption in Kenya? Is it by running away to the US or to Britain or to Australia? To finish corruption in Kenya, I can make a difference in our own company. I can make a difference when I'm driving in the car and the way I handle the cops. Because that's more contribution you make. Each one of us here pushing his own corner, her own corner, we make a difference. You can make a difference towards only one cause, eradication of breast cancer. And you don't have to eradicate the entire breast cancer. But you can write a proposal for funding. You can look for financial interventions. You can find one person to go for screening. Each one of us can make a contribution. Allow me to pull some four faces in history. Joan of Arc, at the age of 19, decided to join the French army. There was a huge barrier, a wall between them and the British enemies, and the soldiers feared the British forces. She said, I'm going to lead the soldiers across the wall. And the soldiers replied, none of them is going to follow you. She said, I'm not going to be looking back to see who's going to follow. Finally, she was captured and tied along a stake. Given a chance to capitulate, she refused and said, living without a purpose is far more tragic than dying young. The first governor of independent U.S. of Virginia, Patrick Henry, during their struggle for independence from the Queen, he said that I quote, if peace is so sweet and life is so dear as to be changed for the price of slavery, forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Nathaniel Hill, a 21-year-old French patriot, when he was called upon to stand for his country, he said that I quote, I regret I have only one life to live for my country. A young man who was running his barber shop, Mark Treptow. In 1917, he joined the famed Rainbow Division, went all the way from the US to Europe during World War I. When he was trying to take a message across heavy battalions, he was shot dead. They found on his lifeless body a note written, my pledge. I will fight, I will work, I will sacrifice, as though the whole struggle depended on me alone. I can't forget to pull one of our own, President Nelson Mandela, a great legal career. He would have lived a nice life like you and me, but he decided to stand up when the call of duty came calling. during the judgment that sent him 27 years behind the bar, where he worked in the quarries, his hands were blistering hard. He stood in that courtroom, said, and I quote, "I cherish the ideal of a free and democratic society in which all persons share equal rights and equal opportunities is an ideal I live for and hope to achieve, in which, if needs be, I'm prepared to die." Maybe you and I are not called for such great sacrifices. But what a shame to have lived and made no contribution to the cause of mankind. Personally, I observed the hopelessness in our society. I observed divorce. I looked communities around us with fatherless homes. I wondered where the fathers were. I looked at entrepreneurs who didn't understand the concept of entrepreneurship, and they were in a rat race their whole lives. I looked at single mothers who didn't have someone to speak to. I looked at many Kenyans who had lost hope in this country, and I wondered aloud, why didn't somebody do something? Then it dawned on me, I am that somebody. Then it dawned on me, although I can't feed all the hungry in this country, although I can't clothe all the naked in this country, I can use my gift, inspire someone, motivate someone, mentor someone, because faith comes by hearing timeless values over and over again. And I made up my mind, I'm going to make a contribution. What difference are you making? What a revolution would we experience in this country if each one of us made a small contribution? Let me suggest tonight, you cannot change which, or rather that which you avoid. Unless you're willing to soil your hands, unless you're willing to face contradictions and controversies and to be mocked and ridiculed, unless you're willing to be scrutinized by the public, you will never make a difference for that which you avoid. President Madera once said, sometimes it befalls upon a generation to be great. You can be that generation. I add, will you be that generation? When the world seems cold to you, can you have the courage to kindle the fires and warm it? When you're putting up the light for someone else, by default, you'll have lit up your own path. The seeds of greatness reside within you. The seeds of greatness are calling you to unleash yourself, to manifest yourself, to release the gift you are created to be. When you do not release it, I come from the school of thought that God will take away that gift and give the obedient person, so that there is no vacuum on this planet. His purposes must prevail. I'm going to leave you with these thoughts. The greatest leader that ever lived was Jesus the Christ. With no financial resources, his organization today has in excess of 3 billion people who profess faith in him. While our leaders live in posh estates, Jesus never owned a house. While our leaders move in entourages and heavily guarded, Jesus simply walked when he carried his earthly ministry. And when he wanted to enter into the holy city of Jerusalem, he chose to ride on a colt of a donkey. When our leaders wait for a red carpet to be laid and a podium to be brought for them to speak, Jesus simply sat on a mountain and began to teach. When our leaders extort money from their followers, never once did he ask anyone for money in any name, tithe, offering, or otherwise. While our leaders take advantage of the vulnerable in the society, Jesus restored such a woman who was with the sick man somebody's husband. When we are embarrassed to be associated with the so regarded as outcasts and rejects of the society, like sex workers, Jesus allowed such a one to kiss and anoint his feet. When our leaders want their briefcases to be carried and to be recognized and to be given the front seats in church, in Harambes, and elsewhere, Jesus stooped low on his knees, took a towel, and washed the disciples' feet. When our leaders take advantage of the poor, Jesus was so moved with compassion to tears. He fed them, he clothed them. Now, his invitation is unprecedented in the history of mankind. He said, and I quote, "Come unto me, all ye that are weak and heavy